So with the kick, yeah, like I said, the attack is in the high end, not the low end. If you want to hear the kick more, you want to boost it here, not in the low end. And then I have a parallel, which is the exact same thing. Okay, so for people that don't know what parallel means, it means that you pretty much copy the same exact thing over, but you're treating this one with a lot of like processing and compression and a lot of BS, and then just slowly blending it in because you're keeping your original sound while adding that compressed sound without actually compressing it to shit. That's really the thing. My favorite transient designer is the Neuron, the one that Isotope has. I tried all of them. The Elysia, I tried the SPL, I tried Ook Sound, the Spiff. I tried all of them, and there are a lot of good ones, but the Neuron is still the best in my opinion. So for the parallel chain, same thing. It's literally the exact same thing, right? The True Iron, Studer, but then I'm literally slamming it into a 1176, and the Blueface sounds the best for kicks, in my opinion. So, yeah, it's hitting it like minus 5 dB of compression. Parallel definitely does not cause mud. I promise you that. If you do it right, it definitely does not. The whole trick about parallel compression is to get rid of all your transients. You might say, man, it's a kick. Why would you want to get rid of your transients? And it's because you're adding a fullness. You're adding like, whenever you add parallel compression, it feels like you're filling up an empty space that you did not know was there. So you get rid of all your transients. So usually I would even have my attack faster, and it's the opposite on the 1176. So usually it's like this. Pultec, this is a different Pultec. This is the Acoustica Audio one, which sounds a bit better than the UAD one, in my opinion. But this is just the low end. This is not high end. This is just low end. And the 60 hertz sounds like godly on this thing. And just some EQ. Like I said, the attack is all in the high end. So I'm shelving it all up. And by itself, it sounds like this. But then if you add the original kick, you really get it to knock hard. And then on the bus, I would have same thing, True Iron, once again, into this. You can't have enough of this thing. And like I said, this is my favorite transient designer, and I wouldn't do anything here really. It's weird because it's the opposite of what your brain tells you, but I'm bringing up the transient information of the high end, not the low end. Because the low end, like I said, makes it muddy and just gives you a whole bunch of low end that you don't need. Like I promise you don't need it. What you need is the high end. Because if I take this off right now, doesn't matter. You can't hear it over the phone, but you get the point. It's it all adds together into this, you know, if I play all of it at the same time now, you're gonna hear what I'm talking about. Sorry, I muted the high end here. Sorry about that. Right, so that's knocking really, really hard. But if you look at my master channel, I'll play it again. Look at what my levels are at. And this is after, you know what I mean, I'm going through my drum buses and everything, and it's still not hitting zero because it doesn't need to. And yeah, snare, same thing. I would parallel it, usually with a spread. Same thing. That thing just sounds fire. And yeah, even with the hi-hat, like with the hi-hat, I still like this transient designer the best. It just has a sound that I like for hi-hat specifically. And yeah, the rest does not have anything on it because it doesn't need it. If it doesn't need it, you know what I mean? Just leave it alone. For melodies, I would usually go with the Ampex. It just sounds like the best tape emulation, in my opinion, is this one. The Studer is cool, but it gives it more of a lo-fi bump that I don't like for melodies. For melodies, I want it to be very nice and punchy and clear and strong. And this thing gives me that. And just the SSL channel strip. What am I doing here? Yep, just adding some high end, and literally that's it. Nothing else. And yeah, like that. It's pretty. Like, honestly, it's pretty simple, and it's different for every single beat, because like I said, it's really about what it needs rather than what your brain, because it's you're so tempted, you know what I mean, to go through all your plugins and be like, oh my gosh, I want to add more and more and more, but you really don't need to. It's really in the routing is really what's important. Like I said, like I have, these are my synths, and they go to a synth bus, right? And then my synth bus goes to my all melody bus, and my all melody bus goes to my all music bus, and my all music bus goes to my mix bus. And it's a lot, but it gives me control over every stage of the sound. Like, let's say I just want to turn down the synths, or let's say I just want to turn down the overall melodies, or I just want to turn down the music because the vocals are a little too, you know what I mean? Like, I have control over it on every single part of the beat. And, every process is different. I will have my go-to chains. Like for my synths, I always go with the SSL saturator and the actual native channel strip from SSL themselves. Like this one, it's pretty self-explanatory, but SSL makes this themselves, this actual plugin. And from all the SSL emulations that I've tried, this one sounds the best, which obviously is not surprising since they actually make the real one themselves too. So it's not hard for them to figure out which one sounds dope, right? So yeah, she's getting enough of me right now. So, and like I said, this is usually for every single synth, because the saturation just sounds really good on synths particularly, and I don't touch anything. Just add it on, close it, keep it moving. And then the channel strip, I usually just leave it too. I don't like hear it like nothing is happening. This is all just like, if I open a plugin without doing anything, this is what it looks like. And I kept it this way because it didn't need anything. And like, let's say I'm mixing and I'm like, okay, the vocals are taking up a lot of space around like 3.5, which is usually what they're doing, wider Q, and just, dip a little bit of that space that the vocal needs. And, it's right there. I don't need to go here, open up a fab filter, find the frequency, and then tune it down. I can just open it, and this is kind of the workflow that you would have on an actual analog console, which is where you can just go to your channel, find whatever the problem is, tweak it with a knob, and keep it moving, because it's all about efficiency and speed, when it comes to this stuff. So this DAW is called Studio One by Personas. Studio One. I did yep, I did it, guys. Very soon I will be making the transfer over, but don't quote me on that, please. Bro, Studio One for mixing, hands down. When it comes to making beats, definitely FL Studio. But once again, that's my personal preference. I'm not saying which one is better or not, because I don't want to get into that debate, because everyone, man, Ableton can do this, which FL can do. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but I have no idea what you're talking about, and I've never even tried it, so I don't think I'm missing anything. And just do whatever like you feel comfortable with, bro, because at the end of the day, that's really what matters. Like if you go to a session and you play a beat for Drake, he's not gonna say, man, did you make that in Ableton? Nah, I don't want it no more. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. If it sounds good, it sounds good, and that's the main rule. What you use doesn't matter. There's top engineers in the world that use Reaper or just different kinds of DAWs that you would never think they would use, but that's what they're comfortable with, so that's what they use. So, you know what I'm saying? Like that's really what it all comes down to. And then, yeah, same thing for the guitars. Saturator, SSL strip. See, not doing a lot. Guitar aux. I love the Ozone 5 exciter. Sounds way better than all the other Ozones. Trust me, I tried. For the percussion, believe it or not, and I make my percussions yellow, so I'm talking about hi-hats, open hi-hats, toms, whatever is not a snare or a drum but still considered drums goes to my percussion bus. And the CLA vocals, which is the most underrated plugin, I promise you, it just, I don't know, like it gives it that thing that I want on my percussions, and it just does it effortlessly. And just a mag, because toms, like the 650 hertz on the mag sounds really fire on toms, so does the 160, and the airband on 40 kilohertz, which is beyond the human hearing. It still gives it a certain sound, so I would add that. And the snare bus, nothing. Didn't need anything. Like I said, it's usually because I run every single sound through either my Shelford or my API and my Neve, and treat them like I use these things as plugins, which you can do here, which is why I love Studio One. There's this plugin called Pipeline, and with this, I can even add a picture. Like, let's say I took a picture of what my settings were. I can add the picture here and just choose whatever, if I want to use my Shelford, API, or MVP, or whatever it is. I can use that and literally use it as if it was as if it was a plugin. I can bypass it and all that stuff. It's just Studio One, man. Like, you guys go, man. Whatever, bro. Like, you guys are freaking awesome. Kick bus, I already showed you guys that. My 808 bus has nothing. Drum bus, honestly, really standard. R bass, Shadow Hills. Usually I put it on the steel transformer. And black box. I promise you, if you use those three, your drums will sound really fire. Man, in terms of mixing, bro, like being a freelance mixer and not like a mixer for like a company or whatever, bro, just mix a lot. Like mix for free, mix for your homie, offer to mix for something for free, give them a money back guarantee if they don't like it, like all that stuff. Because really what it comes down to is practice, because you can watch a billion videos about how to make a kick hit hard, but if you don't get to practice it and actually use it, you won't know, because I used to watch those kinds of videos and be like, man, that's fire. And then I would try it on my beats because that's the only thing I could try it on. And it wouldn't work. And I wouldn't understand why. And that's because I just seen it and then tried it without the actual context of, a whole mix with vocals and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. R bass, man, I'm telling you, R bass, here, I'll give you guys the sauce, okay? Here, look. So there's like a bunch of them on Google, but I go by, where is it? This one. I think this one works. Yeah. So this is like spaghetti sauce, bro. Like super, super, super sauce. Like mega sauce. These are frequencies based on the keys, right? So if you got, let's say, a song and it's, in E minor, right here, I promise you, just go to R bass, type in either 4182 or 164 and then bring it up and you will thank me later. Just type in frequency table notes and they will all pop up. And these are frequencies based on the actual key of the song. So let's say your vocal is a little weak, you know, go to like the 7th octave and use whatever frequency the key is in and just boost that a little bit. And it will sound musical. You know what I'm saying? And you don't have to do the whole like, you know, I see everyone do this and it's super wrong. Okay, sorry, I shouldn't say wrong because there's nothing wrong when it comes to music, but it's just not a really efficient technique, you know, doing this and then, you know, swooping it around. Because listen, if you do this and you're boosting something by 9 dB, like it's going to sound bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously it's going to sound bad. So you're going to sweep and be like, oh my gosh, that sounds bad. And then you bring it down and you don't even know if you actually fixed the problem, because a lot of people, you know, don't go and game match it, you know, because here you're losing like 1 dB. So maybe add a half a dB or whatever. Like people don't, like, a lot of people that I see make music don't do that. And it's unfortunate because you're working backwards. You're not actually improving. You're tricking your ears, which is not smart. You know what I'm saying? So the best thing to do, especially on Pro Q3, which is really easy. Like if you have this vocal here, for example, right? That's not a vocal, sorry. Here is a vocal.
When you see it gonna us, if I ever change my life, I won't die, multiply when you want it like you.
Here. If I add a fab filter to this, let me loop this part. Sorry, I only have 2 hands. I'm sorry. If I loop this part.
Go to turn to dust, I don't do it cause I wanna, I just do it. Yeah, money.
Look, if I hold my thing down here, you can see what's happening. And you can see the ones that are peeking out. So don't pay too much attention to what the plugin tells you. Look at it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and listen, obviously, but you can clearly see that there's a hump here. So now I mixed these vocals already, so it's pretty, like, it's a nice linear curve. So like, I wouldn't actually fix it, but let's say, you know, it's peaking here a lot. You know, you can go back to this table and be like, okay, this song is in, what song is this in? Let me see, auto-tune. Song is in E minor. Oh, look at that. I was right. E minor. You know, you go to the E minor table, whatever, and you can see 26 or 52, right? So I go here, select my frequency, 26. It doesn't have to be like perfectly, like, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter, but around here, and then look, and then here, let me take this off, and then look at the frequency. See? I didn't even have to look at it really, because this frequency table is on point with it, and I promise you it is. So if you just take that out, it's going to be nice and soft. You know what I'm saying? It gives you a nice... Fab filter does have it built in over here, but the problem is, do you rather want to do this, you know what I'm saying? Or do you want to just look at the frequency and apply it to whatever EQ that you have? Because that's the biggest key, right? Because let's say your song is in a certain key and you want to add bass, you know, like let's say, okay, it's an E right now. You can see it's on 41 hertz. So I know just by trial and error that the pull tag doesn't have 40 hertz, but what does have 40 hertz is the API, for example. So if I go to the API, I can go here. Oh, shoot. No, it doesn't. Which one does? I think it's the other API, right? The API 550B. There you go, right? So you got 40 hertz here. And then just add that. Boom. That's it. Done. Like, that's really it. Because it's musical, and I know that because I'm looking here. Yeah, I know it's 41.20, but fuck, like, it's really about the number, like the first number here. That's really what it's about. That's where the sauce is at. So if you know these numbers, which I have like written down somewhere so I don't have to Google it every single time, I would just use that, go to whatever plugin I know has that frequency. For example, I know that the Neve, has the 1.5 that sounds really good, and so does the API, funny enough. But if I have a song and I go here and I see like, there's one that has like, let's say I have a song that's in G, I'm like, bet, 15, 15 hertz, whatever. I just go here and I select 1.5 and boost that or cut that depending on whatever it is that I was looking for. And that is really like one of the main, that's how you mix musically, in a sense. But, don't always do it. Like know when to use it and when not to, you know what I'm saying? Because, not every single EQ change you make should be based off of the numbers that you see, but it should definitely be, because I've had it a few times where I added the right note to a kick and I thought, okay, that's supposed to sound good, but then it ends up not sounding good. So still use your ears, because it doesn't always work, but 99.9% it will work. On this verse, I added kickstart. Oh, yeah. So if you guys don't know what is happening, okay, if you guys don't know about kickstart, it's pretty much LFO volume automation. So if I really exaggerate it, you'll hear it, right?
Yeah, money was the motive, but your bitch was just a bust. Eat my Jordan.
But it's cool because if you use this and you use the mix knob, because I use it on vocals all the time, and you might think, why the hell would you want to use that on vocals? Because it adds movement, like genuine movement. So if I bring this down to like 30% of the mix, I'm keeping 77% of the original dry signal in the vocal, and I'm adding the effect only 33%. So it's very slight. So your ear is not picking up what's happening, but it's feeling the movements.
Everything I touch, turn to gold or turn to dust. I don't do it cause
and if I take it off, you'll hear the difference.
Yeah, money was the motive, boy, your bitch was just a plus.
Now it's just stagnant.
When you see it,
put it back on.
I ever change my life, I won't die, multiply when you want it like you I.
It gives it a rhythm. It gives it a bounce. Even though, because I add this to vocals that I feel need that pump. It needs that kind of push and bounce and rhythm to it, because it does add something to it. And this is what I'm trying to say when I'm talking about knowing what you use rather than trying to Google what the best plugin out there is. Because if you know what a plugin does, like no one would ever use this on a vocal. People would be like, no, this is meant for kicks, as the name insinuates, kickstart, or on 808s, or on melodies, or on synths. But I know what it does, and I know how I can use it in a creative way. So you can use it on anything. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have a certain plugin that does something that you like and is cool, you might say, you know what? I'm going to just use it on a kick, or I'm going to just use it on this because I know what it does and this is what I want to do to it. And that's really important. You know what I'm saying? Like it's really important to know what something is doing rather than just, because bro, like I see people all the time talking about like, oh, you use that plugin? Oh, this plugin, is way better at that. And it's like, cool, but I know this plugin and I know it so well that it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, no one's going to listen to a song and say, hey, it sounds like you used the older version of the plugin. I don't like this song anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like people just listen to whatever it sounds like. Yeah, I used Kickstart on the vocal, but not the vocal bus, just... Oops, I have no idea what I just did. I'm just going to not save this. So I have to make sure I don't press Control S or whatever. But yeah, I just used it on the verse. That's it. I only used it on the verse. The hook doesn't have it. And like I said, this is still going to a bus with additional processing. So, okay, I'll save the live, guys. I'll save it. I promise. I won't be mean. Yeah, bro, you know, breaking the rules, but you know, there is no rules. That's the whole beautiful thing about it. You know, it's like if you have a whole canvas, a blank canvas, and you have all these paintbrushes and colors and whatnot, there's no rules, bro. Like you can start with black and then freaking throw some green on it and some blue and whatever, you know, like it's an empty canvas. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you feel is good or sounds good. And don't, like, if your plugin is showing you like, oh, overload or you're clipping or whatever it may be, F it, bro. Like, just do what sounds good, because at the end of the day, no one's gonna look at your song. People are gonna listen to it, you know? So that's really important. Yeah, man. You know, I don't really know what else I can show you guys. What do you recommend the most to create space between drum space and melodies? Frequency. So what I mean by that is you have to, like this, like you might wonder, right? Like if you look at like a very professional mastering studio. Mastering studio. The number one thing you're going to see, right? First picture, right? Mastering studio. See what you see here? It's an analyzer. And I'll tell you why it's important, because you can visually see what frequencies are dominant and are not dominant. So for example, if I have this synth right here, let me just solo it by itself. Right? If I add a fab filter, which also has an analyzer in it, which is good, I can see right now nothing, and then, oh, so right here, you got, okay, let me take this off. I don't like this thing. Let me play it again. See, so I can see that around 300 to 500, right? 300 to 500 hertz is what's dominant here. So I know what kind of sound it is. It's a synthy, dark kind of sound. So if there's something else that is occupying the same frequency range, it's very simple. You just either go here and turn it down, or you go to the other sample that whatever is competing in the same frequency range and just turn it up. That's how you kind of can create space. So with vocals, for example, I've tweaked the vocal based on the hi-hat and the snare. So if usually the snare I found is hitting around here, like 2500 hertz, right? So if my snare is hitting really hard there, I could even add a multiband on my vocal and have it duck every single time the snare hits. It's all about leaving space for whatever needs to be occupying it and whatever deserves it. Because sometimes things need to go to the background, sometimes things need to come forward, and you know, you can't just have it in one place all the time. You want it to move backwards, forward, to the side, left, right. Like you want it to move around. And here, this is how I would do it with a vocal. I would not put it on this channel right here. I would usually put it on like my all lead, right? Which is just SSL and Soothe. If you guys don't know about Soothe, like Google it. Here, Ook sound, Soothe. It sounds very soothing, which is exactly what it is. This is pretty much a multiband that has unlimited multibands and just works. It's pretty much a resonant equalizer that does a very good job. Either way, I would add a multiband, for example, this one, right? And then I know my range, so 2.5K to 5K, whatever. Somewhere around here is where my snare would hit. And I would set the external to the snare. So here it goes to my snare bus. So every single time the snare hits, it's gonna duck that frequency range of the vocal every single time. So that way, it leaves space for the snare and the vocal because it's happening so quick that you don't even hear it. I already be knowing, bro. Soothe number 2 is the GOAT. Soothe number 2, man. I'm telling you, bro, this is like this is a gem, like a real life gem. Like this is one of those examples of, you know, certain plugins can do things that hardware just can never do. Like I could try and filter as much as I want with my API, but it will never be able to do what this thing does. And the best way to show you what it does is here. Let me just play the vocals.
People that ain't talk to me until I made my brand. Can't put trust in anyone. When all is said and done, the people ever around me are the people where I'm from.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. So the difference between this and Golfus is that this is actually a resonant EQ, multi-band. You know, like it sounds very technical, but pretty much, if there's a frequency that you don't like, usually you would do this, boom, make it very narrow, and just bring it down, and boom. The problem is if the vocalist changes key, which they do literally every single second, which is why this is not really as beneficial anymore, is that this resonant frequency that you just took out might move over here. But, you know, your EQ can't follow it. You know what I'm saying? It's not following it. So that's what this thing does do. It follows it follows the resonant frequencies, which makes it sound smooth. So it's very soothing. No pun intended. So yeah, Sooth is definitely the GOAT. And then Golfus reacts to the human hearing. So if you guys know, the human hearing has like a certain frequency response curve. And based off of that, it would work with that. It would pretty much use that to its advantage to tame or recover, as they say, certain sounds out of a sound. So let's say your vocal is lacking high end, but you don't know that because you know you're just a human, and you know humans are not that smart. You know that plugin would use that human hearing graph and frequency response range to actually bring that out. And it's really crazy. How do I make the autotune sound so smooth? It's not me, bro. It's the vocalist, because the autotune is anything but smooth. Like anything but smooth. It's like the hardest setting I could possibly do. Obviously it's a low male vocal, so low male. And if you guys have the Autotune Pro version, this is like, I use this a lot because it gives it that old Autotune sound, which is pretty dope. Oh, and by the way, sorry guys, this song, if you guys want to check it out, it's actually out on Apple Music, mixed and mastered by me, so you can get an idea of what the full version sounds like. It's this. It's called Dust by Baby Blue, and this is what the cover art looks like, so you guys can check it out. Very talented artist. And yeah, and there's this one part that I personally love in this song, because he says something about, you know, my moves are something and your moves are like a GIF. So he's referring to, you know, like the moving pictures. And then he says something about, even if I see you in real life or an Oculus Rift, and Oculus Rift is like a VR thing, I think. So I wanted it to sound really weird and very like virtual reality like, which is a weird way to put it, but I wanted the vocal to have that. So I added this
real life Oculus Rift. We get vivid with it because it's,
I wanted, you know what I'm saying? Like I wanted it to stand out and have a weird, like glitchy kind of effect to it.
I'm coming at you, real life Oculus Rift. We get vivid with it because,
so like I said, it's all about movement and making things happen at the time that you want them to happen. And it's pretty much just pitch shifting what I'm doing, and pan automation, stuff like that. But yeah, like check out the song. You can kind of hear everything that I've been talking about in this live stream. You can hear it in action on that song. And a cool little trick too is that Spotify, and this is for all my fellow mixing and mastering engineers, Spotify normalizes, right? Apple Music normalizes. That means, very simply, here, like I can show you this very, very easily. I have to really make sure I don't save this, right? So this is a beat I made the other day. Let me spread that out, make it a little bigger. So as you can see, this is mastered, right? It's literally hitting the peak and the edge. And everyone is always asking about my LUFS, and it's usually around 7.3 to like 6 point something, which I know is ridiculously loud, but I do it in stages. So I don't have distortion like that. And because this limiter on the Neve, you can literally do like minus 6 dB of gain reduction. And I promise you, you don't hear it. And you know, it's funny because when I first got it, I was like, bro, is this thing broken? You know, I was like, why can't I hear the limiter working? And it's because it's really just that transparent. So yeah, so this is what Spotify would do, right? So Spotify would see the song and be like, okay, that's loud. We're going to turn it down. Boom. And then this is what happens. And see, it just looks like a little, just looks like a fart. It looks like a poop. It looks like a straight line of poop. You know what I'm saying? It looks like it has no dynamic range whatsoever. So another song that does not have that, right? For example, this, which I know I did not master yet, you see, is not hitting 0 at all. It's just staying right there. So Spotify would see this and be like, compared to, okay, let me move this over here. Compared to this song, right? Now this one is louder. So now I'm going to turn this down, right? So that it's just as loud as this one. But what happens is there is not a lot of dynamic range here, right? Because this is all the dynamic range that you get. And with this one, I get all of my dynamic range again. Do you feel me? So you can trick the algorithm. You know, you don't have to hit your limiter that hard in order to compete with other records that are out right now. You really don't have to, because at the end of the day, Spotify and Apple Music, they normalize it anyways. But there is a little trick that I've found, and that is, you know, because usually compressors, they get overloaded with low end. Like if there's a lot of bass feeding the compressor would act really hard and would be pretty much overwhelmed by the bass. So Spotify and Apple Music don't do that. They don't pay attention to the bass. Rather, they pay attention to the mid-range. And this is a huge thing, because what that means is that, you know, a compressor is pretty much looking at this frequency range right here. Bass, right? If there's too much bass, the compressor is going to work too hard and you're going to get that weird pumping effect. Spotify and Apple Music, they look over here in terms of loudness. So if you do something like this with like the widest Q possible, something like that, literally this, like I'm dead ass, like this right here. If you do this to your master channel, automatically Spotify will make your song 2 to 3 B louder. Literally just by doing this. And you're already louder than all these other records that are out. It's like the biggest cheat code in the music game. Because before, this is hey bro, listen, I'm not Mr. Scientist guy, right? Don't quote me on this. Don't go in an interview and say, Eastbound said this, but there's no scientific proof. I'm just telling you from experience, because I've mixed and mastered records for people and heard them back on Apple Music and Spotify. And I'm noticing that generally I'm louder. And by trial and error, I'm figuring out it's not the bass that does this, it's the mid-range, which is what blew my mind, because usually it is the bass that triggers it, right? So if you master a record, right, just literally, like, I wouldn't do it with the Fab filter. I would do it with a Pultec, because Pultecs have a very wide Q, and do it a little bit more musical. So just go to the 1.5 on the mid-range Pultec and just take out like 1 dB. literally just one, and already you'll be louder than a lot of. Then I mean, you'll just be louder. I'm not gonna say louder than other records because there's mastering engineers for a reason, but that's really kind of what it comes down to. But this still matters, your dynamic range, because if you see, technically these songs are both peaking at the same level, but I promise you, if I play this versus this, it's not gonna, like, this one is gonna sound way louder and squashed versus this one is gonna sound very open, and it's gonna sound less compressed in a way. But I did find, just by trial and error, once again, don't quote me on this because I hear people here in my live going like, oh, is this tested or is it a theory? I mean, I guess you can say it's tested because I'm testing it myself because I'm really into this stuff. But around like 8 LUFS is the sweet spot. I promise you, it's the sweet spot. Because a lot of people say like, oh, Spotify and Apple Music, they're looking at, minus 14 LUFS for, let me read this real quick. Yeah. So like they look at minus 14 LUFS, when it comes to loudness, right? So if your song is at minus 14 LUFS, technically that's what Apple Music and Spotify is looking for. But what happens is they won't turn it up or down. Meaning that the way that you sent it, they probably will leave it exactly the same. Therefore, these people that get their songs mastered by really good mastering engineers and they have their analog things hitting it really hard, will just sound louder. And not because they're actually louder, but because it's apparent loudness. Because what happens with analog is when analog clips and when it distorts, it sounds good. It doesn't sound bad. It doesn't sound like weird and like where it's breaking up. Analog sounds good when you're clipping into it. So because of that, you have more headroom. Like your 0 over here on analog is like all the way up because you can hit it much harder without getting that same annoying garbage distortion that you get when you clip like digitally. So that's why mastering analog is so important, because you can push things a lot louder than you would be able to in the digital world, right? So -8, yeah, like homie, like rugged music. You're right, bro. So like -8 to -9.5 is a good sweet spot. Around there, you will be competing with like big records. I'm talking about Drake. I'm talking about like all the big records that you're listening to, thinking like, man, these are so loud and so punchy and so big and so good. They're around -8. You know what I'm saying? Because the mastering engineers probably will get it there. How much headroom should producers leave for the engineer? So this is a very big misconception. The mixing engineer does not care. Like, or I'm talking about a good master. Sorry, I'm definitely misquoting myself here. A really good mastering engineer will not give a flying beep about what levels your mix is at, as long as it's not clipping. That's all he cares about. Because in the digital world, look, if I play, okay, I can't play this. Here, if I, whatever, like you get the point. If it's over here, if it's over here, if it's over freaking here, even if it's like over there, but it's not hitting 0, you're good. That's it. Before, back in the day, yes, that did matter, right? Because of the workflow, pretty much. It's a long story, but pretty much because of the workflow. Nowadays, it's digital, right? So all the mastering engineer has to do is just turn it down and boom, he's good to go. Because yes, they need headroom. And the only reason why they need headroom is because they work with analog, right? They have analog gear, and that has a certain level of, because 0 on digital is not the same as 0 on analog. Because if I hit 0 on digital and send it to my analog, I'm freaking like in the red, like bad clipping. Like I'm talking, because like obviously analog still has a point where it starts to sound bad. And 0 on digital is bad on analog. It's too much, right? Unless you have converters that can handle it, which, you know, this, like the newer Apollo is one of them, because you have the option to add plus 24 dB of dynamic range. So in my instance, 0 is actually 0 on my hardware too, but in most cases it's not, right? So just to put that out there. So when I'm playing something into my gear, right? Here, let me open up a new session so I can show you guys rather than, here. I'm gonna just load. Actually, the best way to show it off is, sorry, not show off, but to show it, is with a tone generator. And this is the #1 way to test things, by the way, guys. If you want to test something, just use a tone generator. It always works and it's always the same. This is definitely going to wake up my dog again, but... Right, so let me put this on 0. Really annoying and really loud. But look, right? 0. If I send this, let me, okay. Let me make sure everything is on 0, it's on nothing. Limiter is off, everything is off. Boom, okay. If I send this to my Neve, look what happens. See that? 24 of dB, right? It's clipping right at, okay, let me turn this off. This is getting annoying. So it's red. I know it's red, but for some reason, it does not sound bad. It sounds good. Like that's just what analog, that's why everyone wants analog, because you can go very high in volume, but it still sounds good. So what I'm talking about with mixing engineers is like, okay, you might say, here, look what happens when I put it on the other setting, right? When I don't have that extra headroom, take off my headroom. If I do this again now, look what happens. So this is a very high powered, like high voltage piece of analog. But what happens is with mastering engineers, if you have this playing at 0, right, with the extra headroom, let me add that again, right? Now I'm clipping, like I'm actually clipping like into my converter. Even though it's 0 here and it's not clipping here, back into my converter is clipping. This is not clipping, like it is, but it sounds good still, but my converter can't handle it because it's 0 digital. So if I wanted to stop clip, I have to turn it down a little bit. And it's not clipping anymore, right? But now it's not at 0 anymore. So that's really the whole thing. I hope this makes sense. I hope I'm not just like talking my ass off, right? But so when people say like, oh, I like to have my mix, you know, at -6 or at minus whatever, it don't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what you have your mix at. You can have your mix at freaking -48 if you want. It literally does not matter when it comes to mastering. So, yeah, man, that's really it. No, I'm definitely not saving that because I screwed up this session big time. So that's really it. Yeah, y'all can argue this with me. That's fine. At the end, like, I'm not trying to be right here. I'm not trying to be, you know, turning other people's theories down or trying to say I know the best. But I do know that just from experience that this is what I'm experiencing. And, you know, I master, right, professionally for people. Like, I get a lot of clients that want mastering done. And, you know, they always ask me, like, you know, like, what level do you want it at? And for me, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'll turn it down manually just so that my analog things can, get it nice. So, you know, don't worry, guys. Even if it's at 0, you turn it down a little bit, you're good to go. Love you guys too, man. I really appreciate you guys taking the time and listening to me ramble on about this stuff. And for everyone that I guess did not really understand what I was talking about, it's really like it's all a lot of technical stuff that kind of doesn't matter. Like it does in a little way, but it doesn't really matter. But if you guys want to start off with this, like, because like I went from there too, right? Like I started, oops, that's definitely not the right term. I typed in gang staging instead of gain staging. That was not the right, that's not good. If you want to learn, like, because like I went from making beats on FL, wondering why other people's songs sound so good and loud. I was always like, man, like, why does it sound so good? Why don't my beats sound that good? And I just became very, I don't like the word obsessed, but I became very interested and very intrigued by mixing and mastering and like, what are all those freaking knobs, right? Like I always seen SSL boards and stuff like that. I was like, what are those knobs, man? Like, you know what I mean? And I never understood what that means. So if you guys want to get into that, this is what you need to learn. That's it. From here, you will get so much power and so much sauce and so much, man, I can't even stress enough how important this is right here. And for my FL people, just do this. And there's like so many videos on how to do it. You know what I mean? Because the theory is very simple, but you just have to like do it from when you start making the beat, not after, because you will mess up your gain structure, which is something that you don't want to do. You feel me? So, I gotta go soon. So if you guys got questions, you can ask them, but I do gotta go. My analog chain when it comes to my API and stuff like that. To be honest with you, man, like I just have it, like I like Apollo for this, which is why I'm probably not going anywhere else soon. But I can actually send something to my API and without having to hard patch it, I can just send it to my Neve like that. Or if I want to really go crazy, I can unlink these. So now both of these are working dual mono, meaning that this is separate, this is separate, this is separate, this is separate. As to, you know, normally these would work in tandem together, and I can really go crazy with it. So I can you know, send something to the right channel, have that go into this, have that go into this, have that go into this, and then have that go into this, back into my converter. Sounds like a lot of BS, but I've done it a few times, and you can really do a lot of things with it. A good alternative for legacy clipping effect on FL. Man, I am not really like, I wouldn't really advise you to clip things like with like, I would say use the Neve. Use the Neve 1073 by UAD. If you don't have UAD, don't worry, because Plugin Alliance, man, these guys should pay me, man. Plugin Alliance, hold up. I'm trying to be quick here. Okay, let me just Google it because this is not fast enough. this one. If you guys don't have the 1073 by Neve, by UAD, like the UAD one, get the Plugin Alliance Lindell Audio 80s channel, which is essentially the same thing, but it's actually better. I don't like that word, but why I say better, it has more features. So this is not part of the plugin. It comes with the plugin. It's like another plugin, but this is the plugin. So that same preamp stage thing that I told you about, like with the preamp and the line, it has it too. But what's dope about the Plugin Alliance version is that it has unity gain. So you don't have to, turn it up, turn down the output, turn it up, turn down the output. You can just click on unity and just turn it up. And the EQ, you can go from the 1084 EQ to the 1073 EQ, which are both fantastic EQs. It also has a compressor, which sounds really, really, really identical to this one. Like, if I did not know which one was playing, I would not know the difference. And I'm not even boosting right now. The gate, I don't really use gate plugins because I don't really I don't really use it. So I don't use that. In my opinion, this is the best alternative if you don't have the Neve by UAD. I know Acoustica Audio makes them too, but to be honest with you, man, like they're just too expensive for me right now. I'm not trying to drop like $500 on a plugin when I have a real one. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't really make sense. But yeah, that one is really good. Because I promise you, I've tried a lot of 1073 emulation plugins, and the reason why I don't like a lot of them is because I'm looking for that certain sound, and I don't really know how to explain it with words, but the actual 1073 has that sound and that weird graininess to it that sounds really good. And not a lot of plugins try to emulate that. And also Universal Audio is the one that actually modeled the 1073 stage by stage, like from the input to the transistors to everything. And yeah, I've tried the Waves one, I've tried the T-Rax one, I've actually also tried the Acoustica Audio one, which sounds fantastic, I'm not gonna lie, but like I said, like there's no reason for me to drop that much money on it if I have a real one. Yeah, so I would just say use that one if you don't have the UAD one. Do you spend a lot of plugins? Man, honestly, me personally, I used to crack all my plugins, bro. I'm not even gonna lie to you, but I stopped doing that, especially once I started taking mixing seriously and starting to do it professionally, because I can't afford for a plugin to all of a sudden stop working when there's a big client and my session just doesn't open up because I have something cracked. So that's not really. Do you use a de-esser plugin or you just clip gain? I do both. So and both, I mean within the same session. So I would clip gain my S's and T's and sometimes F's down, and I would add another de-esser to it just to make it sound more smooth. You cracked UAD? I don't believe that, bro. How the hell do you do that? You got to tell me. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't want to crack anymore. But guys, so once again, my Instagram is telling me I have like 30 seconds left. So I really hope that you guys got some insight from this and got some questions answered. So love and blessings to all you guys, man. I appreciate you guys, and peace.